Let's start off with some of this confusion in D.C. about this Elon Musk, emails that you have to explain what you're doing over the last week. Several Trump appointees, they've actually said that their staff and their agency shouldn't respond to these emails. How does this impact not only, the way things are running in D.C., but also investor confidence?
So, Elon and the DOGE has come in with a tremendous amount of energy as they're trying to tackle various problems of government spending. I think some of it has been chaotic. There's been a little bit of shoot first, ask questions later. There's a lot of good things that go on with trying to find government efficiencies, but it certainly is confusing some investors about the direction of U.S. government policy and the ability for the U.S. government to react in an efficient way. I mean, it can be counterproductive if you fire too many people too quickly and government doesn't operate and provide the services that it's supposed to. So I think investors are just generally trying to find out what's going on, what direction we're heading in. They are looking for a resizing of the U.S. government to get the debt trajectory on a more sustainable path. And I think there's a lot that they like about the Trump administration. But this particular approach has been a little bit confusing to them.
Over the recent days, we've talked a lot about China, Chinese equities actually having a big surge, a lot of big name investors seeing a lot of confidence in China. The thought basically being that President Trump would have a better relationship with China. I'm looking at the headlines over the weekend. He's rolling out memorandums on Chinese tech, also telling Mexico to put additional tariffs on Chinese imports. How is this China dynamic? How is that impacting not only investor confidence, but also how people see some of these other policies? Because I think a lot of people, maybe you're one of them, they saw a method to the madness. Are some of these recent headlines, is that changing that perception, do you think?
I think there is a method to the madness. And it's difficult to look at all of the tariffs in the same bucket because they're all different. And Trump uses tariffs to achieve other goals, whether it's Mexico or Canada, but what those goals are dictate what the tariffs are going to look like and what the negotiation process is like. Let's go back to the China tariffs when they were initially announced. They were only 10%, even though during the campaign, he said 60%. Well, I think it's pretty clear that he sees China as a useful partner in negotiations with Russia in trying to settle the Ukraine situation. So there is another geopolitical element to the tariffs vis-a-vis China, in addition to trade. On the trade side, he clearly wants a more reshoring of U.S. manufacturing, U.S. production back in the United States, and he sees Mexico as an impediment to that. As in the wake of the initial tariffs back in 2018, and then the renegotiation of the USMCA, the successor of NAFTA, saw a lot of Chinese production moving towards Mexico, and to Trump that and to many Republicans, that's a problem. So there are a bunch of different factors at play in terms of how they approach China. I think the tariffs are still coming, but again, with Trump, there can be delay, there can be putting off in order to get the outcomes that he's looking for.
Brian, there's some new developments also when it comes to Europe. The expected next chancellor of Germany, Europe's largest economy, biggest defense spender, come out saying that Europe should actually seek its independence from the U.S. How does that dynamic potentially impact how not only investors view Europe, but also how this administration could potentially view Europe?
So it's one of the biggest trading blocs with the United States. Obviously, in a post-World War II world, it's been a very, very close relationship. Europe, to its detriment, has not been paying attention to signals coming out of the United States. I think they thought that the first Trump administration was just a passing fad, and that would go away, and that the relationship would continue as is. But I think European leaders, they've not been paying attention to the signals from the United States. They've not been listening closely enough to their own voters. And I think there is a level of disharmony in Europe that we saw manifest itself in part of the German elections. And I think you're going to see more tough talk between the U.S. and Europe, especially on the U.S. side. I think a number of the tariffs that have been rolled out and more to come have Europe in mind, while the headlines initially were Mexico, Canada, China. I think there's going to be a lot going on with Europe as we progress here. And I think it's going to be a policy headwind for investors.